What is up everyone, Josh's Custom Builds here, back with another video. Today we have a really interesting video. One of my clients, Chris, has sent me in their lower from his build. He wants to install an LA Capa Customs version 2 frame and was having some issues, so I'm going to get it installed for him, get everything cleaned, lubricated, and tuned. So let's get right into it with this lower disassembly. I've already removed the grip, just because that's not very interesting. So we are going to pop out his slide stop and detent set. Here is this Unisoft grip safety. It's actually finished really nice. I'm going to set that aside, and we are going to set these detents aside as well in the spring. I got a little Glock parts bin over here, which is very helpful. They're really cheap online. If any of you guys want to purchase one, I really like them. So now let's remove this side chassis from his stock Tokyo Marui frame. Yep, that's the one. And we're just gonna take this out. Alright, and we will set the screw aside. And let's lift off the side chassis. Alright, so here is his valve knocker disconnector and valve knocker set. Seems to be functioning fine. We are going to disassemble this, and we're going to throw this into the side chassis on the LA Capa Customs frame. So I'm going to move both of these lowers up. Here we are. Going to remove this screw as well that holds in your inner hammer chassis. As you can see, LA Capa Customs includes their own in their frame, which is really awesome. A lot of frames do not include these side chassis, so good on LA Capa for including that in their frame assembly. So we're going to take out the valve knocker disconnector. This is also commonly referred to as the firing pin. It does like to shoot out, so I'm going to cup it. There's a little spring in here, so we're going to cup that, and our valve knocker disconnector will come right out. So perfect. We can set this TM side chassis aside. What I am going to do now is just wipe these parts down and then apply some lubricant to them. When you're installing a new frame, I always recommend to over lube instead of under lube, just to get everything broken in properly. Here's a silicone cloth I like to wipe everything down with. If you live in America or any free country that allows you to buy firearms, you can find these at any gun store. If not, you could probably find them on Amazon. I really like to wipe my parts down with these first because it does have a layer of silicone on it. But we are obviously going to run some proper lubrication on these parts as well. I'm just going to wipe this down. So this is our valve knocker disconnector. A lot of people also like to call this the firing pin, and then here is our valve knocker. So upon wiping these down, let's take off our side chassis on the LA Capa Customs frame. We'll remove that there. I'm going to grab a little bit of Loctite 242 to apply on our screw here. If you do not Loctite this side inner chassis screw, it does tend to get loose upon a lot of firing, so I always recommend just a little dab of blue Loctite on the screw. There we go. We'll just let that sit while we're installing. So here is our valve knocker disconnector. I'm going to grab a little bit of Waldo Customs medium lubricant here. So it looks like Chris did attempt to install this previously in his setup. So we are just going to wipe down this inner chassis as well, or the side chassis, excuse me, as well. And then I will take a little Q-tip here, get inside. Just make sure there's no gunk or old lubrication that is in here. We're just going to completely delube it. And then I'm going to put a drop of Waldo Customs lubricant right where the valve knocker disconnector sits. And we are also going to lubricate the valve knocker disconnector. The next step is to take the spring that came out of the valve knocker disconnector assembly. We're going to pop it into this little slot. We're going to insert our valve knocker disconnector. Like I said, this is also called the firing pin. I don't want to confuse anybody. I just like to call it the valve knocker disconnector because that's really what it is. Then we're going to take our inner chassis, put that in, make sure our valve knocker disconnector can move freely, which it can. And then we are going to take the screw, which we applied that Loctite to. This is not a magnetic screwdriver, I forgot about that. And we are just going to screw her right down. The rest of this assembly is very straightforward. As you can see, you want to make sure your valve knocker disconnector can move freely. We're going to take our valve knocker itself, apply a dab of Waldo Customs lubricant on the back side. I also like to apply a little bit of lubricant on the inner chassis while I'm first installing the frame. Like I said, it's always best to over lubricate when you're installing new frames instead of under lubricate, just to make sure all the parts can break in properly. So we are going to hook in our return spring here for the valve knocker, hook that into place, and our side chassis looks to be fully assembled. Perfect. So we can set our side chassis aside and we can move on to the lower itself. So looks like Chris here has an LA Capa Customs Hive hammer, a 9-ball duraluminum sear, and a stock TM disconnector. We will set this lower aside. We don't need this anymore. I'm going to run the silicone cloth inside of our LA Capa Customs frame, get rid of all that old lubricant. And we are also going to hit these parts really hard because they're very dirty. This sear, this is the older version 9-ball sear. It may need to be tuned with this LA Capa Customs frame. On my personal build, I did have to tune the Neo sear to work properly. So we will have to see if we have to tune this sear or not. Perfect. And then we're just gonna, like I said, wipe everything, all the old gunk off of these parts. Make sure there's no interference when we're installing this new frame. Awesome. All right. So, moving on to our lower, we're going to put a drop of Waldo Customs lubricant right here where the disconnector will sit. Get it all nice and lubed up. This is where your disconnector moves, so you definitely want to apply some lubricant here and on the back side of your disconnector. We'll slap it right into place. Next up, we're going to grab our hammer, and we're going to apply some lubrication to the bottom of the hammer where it grabs onto the sear. And this strut is very dry, so I'm going to apply some lubricant to that as well. Set that here. I have some lubrication on my hand, so we are going to just apply that to the 9-ball sear. And we will rest that in place. Perfect. Alright, so it does look like this 9-ball sear will need to be slightly tuned. So I am going to tune this off camera just because it would be a pain in the ass to watch on camera. I can tell just by where the hammer's sitting, but you will probably need to do some trial and error. I can just tell by visual look because I've installed a lot of these frames. When you tune a sear, you just Dremel downwards or file downwards on the top and then make the point more defined on the bottom. But it is very tedious, so I'm going to do that off camera and I will be right back. Well, what's up, guys? We are back. So I did finish tuning this 9-ball sear. What I do to tune sears is I first take this Dremel bit to change the angle slightly downward on the sear, not too much, and then I follow that up with my diamond tip Dremel to smoothen everything out and take a little bit more off, and then I just come down under it to define that sear point a little bit more for the hammer tooth. Like I always say, I do recommend doing that with a metal file if you're not used to tuning sears, because it is very easy to mess up, and if you make your hammer sit too high, that's a problem. The other thing that I did while I was off camera is I found that Chris's hammer was installed a little bit wrong. Usually with these LA Capa Customs Hive hammers, you have to modify the screw to be able to go in all the way, which I did, and he would kind of hacked at it a little bit on the sides here, which made the edges of the hammer really rough and hard to go smoothly in with the frame altogether. So I gave it a nice polish with one of my Dremel bits and some Flitz auto polish, which I really love. So I'm just going to throw this back together. I'm going to put a little bit more lubricant on the hammer again because I just finished with the polish. So I will give it a nice bath of lube. Throw that in there. And then here is our freshly tuned sear. And I will show you as well. So we put it in here, and I can tell by the way the hammer sits, so I don't know if you guys will be able to see, but when we lock it out, it is up slightly higher, and I tested it out with my Turbo BBU, and it's the perfect length, because it slightly touches the ramp of the BBU, which is exactly what you would like. Now let's put this frame all back together. We got our side chassis here. We're going to throw our side chassis up on our hammer internals on our main frame. We got to make sure everything's aligned. It's a little bit hard to get everything lined up on the LA Capa Customs frame. Let's make sure everything works. So when you press that valve knocker disconnector, the hammer should be able to fall freely, which it does. Looks like a good position to tighten the frame down in. We have our set screw up here, or our frame screw up here, which I'm going to apply a slight dab of Loctite Tooth 42. There we go. We'll let that dry for a bit. I like to do it on these patches because the excess you can easily get off of the screw. So it looks like we are in a good position here to tighten this down. Grab our screw. Throw it in the frame, and we will tighten it down. Here we go. So now, it looks like it's in the slightly wrong position there. Loosen that up a bit. Good. There we go. Perfect. Like I was saying, it is a little tricky to get this frame lined up properly, because if it is misaligned a little bit, the hammer can get stuck. So you have to make sure everything is properly aligned so the frame is able to function. Now, the rest of the install is rather straightforward. We are going to grab our detent set out of our parts. So we will take our detent in the back, throw it in there, our smaller one, then we'll take our spring, put it inside, and then we will take our detented contents to the safety. We have our Beavertail, which should slide right in. This is a Unisoft Beavertail, so it does not look like it is fitting very well with this LA Capa Customs frame. Okay, so I'm going to have to ask the client whether he wants me to modify this or just throw in a stock Beavertail, so I will catch you guys in a second. What's up, guys? So he did end up going for the Beavertail modification, so I did modify that and go ahead and make it work with his LA Capa Customs frame, and as you can see, everything is functioning well. I did already record this, but my camera died while I was doing it, so this is take 2, and hopefully this is the final part. I did end up giving him some stock Tokyo Marui grips. The last tech who was working on his gun basically destroyed his grips trying to make his trigger fit. There's never any reason why you should have to do this. If you guys ever have any questions tuning your grip or your trigger, make sure to let me know, because there's never any reason why your pointer finger should be able to fit through a trigger hole in your grip. So I went ahead and gave him some stock TM ones. So we're just gonna throw this back together, go ahead and put the frame onto the grip, make sure everything is all aligned. And we'll take our grip screws. He's got these nice rainbow grip screws on his pistol. Screw those into place. There's the first side. And we'll put them in the second side. There we go. And they are properly in place. Now we are going to lift our hammer up, lift our Beavertail safety up, and place our leaflet spring into the pistol. Let me try to do this on camera for you guys. So we will lift this up. We want this piece of the leaflet spring to rest on our sear, and this piece to rest on our disconnector. This controls your Beavertail safety. This particular leaflet spring is a Cow Trident, so we're gonna throw that into the grip of the pistol. And if you guys can see, we move the hammer strut out of the way. So our middle arm is resting on our sear, and our right arm is resting on the disconnector. So that is exactly how it should be. Now we are going to close up this grip, press the Beavertail down. We have our hammer spring. We will push that into place. And he does have an elongated pin here for his hammer. I'm assuming it's for obviously a magwell, so trigger moves freely, works nice. Hammer's functioning well. Valve knocker disconnector works. Throw in just a little bit more lubrication on the rails for him, just for shipping. Like I always say with these frames, make sure to apply a good amount of lubrication your first time through, because it will be a little stiff. But there you have it. This is his LA Capa Customs frame. It is working really well with these stock TM grip. This, like I said, there's never any reason why your grip should look like this. Never file it like that. So he will be getting some new grips, but I was able to give him some stock TM ones I had on hand until he can. Thank you guys so much for watching this repair. I really appreciate it. If you need anything done to your high cap or you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me through YouTube or Instagram. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know what you'd like to see next on Josh's Custom Build channel.